Bienvenidos a Besos de NYC. I'm Patricia Wedding, supporting small businesses, artists, and entrepreneurs, and the culture of NYC. This year, I'm going to be focusing my channel on getting more interviews with entrepreneurs, and in particular, women of color, Black women and Latinas. I think we need to see them more in leadership roles, not only for us, but also for our children. I was recently reading an article in the New York Times that is titled Latinos Winning the Culture War. It's an article from September of 2020. And I learned that although 19% of the population in the United States are Latinos, only 3% of lead roles in movies went to Latinos. From 2007 to 2018, those roles, that 3% that were given to Latinos, 25% of the roles were depicted as people who were employed. Another 88% were depicted as incarcerated or as perpetrators of crimes. I think we can do better. I'm going to change that through my channel by bringing to you people who should be in leadership roles, people who look like you and me. Because Latinos in the Black community, we are leaders. Know that. You're leaders, you're intelligent, you're beautiful, and we are a force to be reckoned with. So with that said, I'm excited about introducing you to Alexa Avilés, who is running for City Council in District 38 in Brooklyn. She is amazing. She has been able to balance raising a young family and following her passion for social justice. She's worked over several years in social justice philanthropy. And now I think that work experience and her growing up in Brooklyn is going to be an asset in her role as city council. You know, she's got my vote. And she's going to do a great job to bringing a voice to those in our community who lack one. So please take the time to like if you like. Please comment. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if I can do anything better. Check out my description below for the New York Times article and any other topics and issues that we touched on in the video. There will be information down there. And subscribe. And don't forget to check out my other videos. So with that said, let's go meet Alexa, and thank you for being here.
Hi, my name is Alexa Avilés. I'm a Boricua mother of two beautiful girls. I am an education activist, an advocate, and a community leader. And I am running for City Council for Brooklyn's District 38. So District 38 is composed of, will represent several neighborhoods: Sunset Park, Red Hook, and portions of Dyker Heights, Borough Park, Windsor Terrace, and South Slope, which some people say will include Greenwood Heights, which is a relatively newish neighborhood within the boundary of District 38. So what City Council does is it is the legislative body of the city and has three really primary purposes. It does legislation, right? Laws, it creates laws and passes laws and amends laws. It is the oversight for city agencies. So it is able to ask city agencies about what they're doing, and it provides an oversight mechanism to do hearings on important issues. And then it passes the budget, and the city council will work with the mayor, sometimes confrontational, but hopefully in alignment to pass the multi-billion-dollar city budget on an annual basis. So those are the three primary roles of the city council members. And obviously each city council member, there are 51, and each represents a geographic district. And our role as a representative of District 38 is to represent the interests of our district residents while also creating citywide policy that affects communities across the city. I'm running for city council because our community has really had a hard time over the last several decades. We've been underinvested and underrepresented, and we need a steady hand. We need someone who's truly committed to the people of our neighborhood. We need someone who's going to fight for the things that our community deserves and should have. So I'm here to just take my activism and my commitment to the next level, to work for the people of District 38, and that's why I'm running. So the challenges of campaigning during a pandemic are many. First and foremost, we have to make sure everyone is safe. And campaigning really does require you to be engaged with the community. It's the thing that I love the most, talking to my neighbors, talking about what their experiences are and crafting a solution together. So COVID, right, is keeping us home, and it really is making the campaign transition to a more virtual space. And many of our communities are not connected to the internet and to social media. So that's been a real challenge of figuring out how do we continue to engage directly those members who maybe are not connected, whose voices are important and experiences are important, and how to do that safely. So that's a major challenge we're confronting. Another challenge really is, people are really struggling for some of their basic human needs, and how to manage both supporting people and helping them get what they need and keeping them safe while also engaging in kind of larger discussions around the issues that we're confronting. But we're committed, and we're going to use every tool and every option that we can to engage with as many people across the district as possible. So growing up in Brooklyn, how it has impacted my life and certainly my own educational opportunities is, first of all, growing up in Brooklyn means that I grew up with so much flavor and grit and a community that was resilient and vibrant. And that permeates everything in my life. And certainly, sadly, in East New York, where I grew up, our schools were not very good. And they were warehousing children, not so much educating children, because East New York was a very poor community that was very much struggling. But I was offered an opportunity through a program called A Better Chance to actually go to a high school that was stronger academically and could help me and my future. And I did, and I applied and I got in, and I went to a school outside of New York City for high school. And then I came back because I really miss New York City, and it's my home, and it's the place where I wanted to be, and I had an opportunity to go to Columbia University. So the program really did help me to navigate an educational system. But what I do realize is that I never needed to leave New York City, and no one should have to leave New York City. You should get the best education, all of our children. It should not be determined on zip code, on where your parents work, on the language you speak. All children deserve an excellent education. So when I was in the process of applying for colleges, I wanted to come back to New York City, and I had an opportunity to go to Columbia University, and I did. I wanted to come back to New York City because this is my home, and I knew this was the place to be. And so at Columbia, I majored in sociology and Latin American history, and that was really important to me because it was the time to study the contributions of our Latino community writ large, right? And I knew I would be giving back to my community. I knew I would always be connected. And from Columbia and through studying sociology, it's the study of people and cultures. And I ended up working in the social justice arena, and that was not surprising because I was raised with a commitment and real responsibility to community through my mom, who instilled that in me. And so I ended up working in social justice philanthropy and working around issues of discrimination, not only in my community, but across the country. So supporting organizations in advocacy on everything from LGBT community members in Arkansas fighting for their own rights in a community that was pushing against them and discriminating, to supporting activists in Cancer Alley in Mississippi who were living between petrochemical companies and being killed in the process. They're being given a playground to placate the community while they were poisoning them at the same time. To fighting for reproductive rights for women across the country. And so my social justice path was seeded when I was a kid from my mom, who was a substance abuse counselor and was very committed to her neighbors, to the elders in the community, all the way through kind of college and into my professional career. And into what I want to do now, which is represent this community in the next level of service. So my role as the program director of the Scherman Foundation prepares me for City Council on a number of levels. First and foremost, the foundation and under my management, we're funding, organizing, and advocacy around policy change in New York City and across the country. And so in New York City, I'm constantly looking at the landscape around the critical changes and responding to requests from the community around the critical changes that we need to see in terms of our policies and how we live on a day-to-day. So we've funded everything from affordable housing advocacy that has led to the historic rent law changes last year and all the protections for renters, to criminal justice reform, to land use issues, to protecting workers' rights, and protecting folks from employment discrimination, and safety of workers across New York City. So the work really is about navigating multiple tensions, multiple issues, right? Intersectional issues around how compounding oppressions are really affecting communities and trying to find solutions. So it really is all this expanse of issues and skills that we bring together in this work that I really think helped to prepare me, along with my lived experience, for City Council. So when I'm elected, some of our goals really is to establish a really strong office for our community. And our policy goals will be the things that cut across all of my life. We're going to be fighting for education justice to make sure that our children all receive a quality education. And this includes everything from fighting for advocacy around full funding, to integration, to culturally responsive education, to removing barriers for families and children, like screening and testing that discriminates against children of color in particular. So we're going to be fighting for education justice. We're going to be fighting for affordable and safe housing, which is at a crisis level, both in our district and across the city. And that is going to be gearing our budget and our policies and centering the people of New York City opposed to profit, centering social housing, centering low-income housing, and building and focusing our resources on solving the problem as opposed to subsidies for corporations or, giving handouts to the real estate industry. And I guess I would say lastly, related to this budget is really shifting the budget, recalibrating the budget so that the needs of our community members of New York City working class people are centered. And what that means is we have to make the budget is a moral document. We have to make decisions that center people. We have to fully fund education like we actually believe in the promise of our children. We have to fully fund housing as if we really believe that housing is a human right and everyone should have access to it. We have to take away funding from institutions and organizations that harm communities, like carceral systems. We have no problem spending money on building prisons and funding institutions like NYPD without accountability. That is no longer the case. And we're going to need to change our budget to make it a supportive budget, a budget that believes in the promise of people and giving them what they need: housing, education, healthcare, not jails and prisons. I'm so honored and humbled by the idea of being a role model to other Latinas. I certainly feel like I stand on the shoulders of some incredible Latinas who broke boundaries and who were willing to speak truth to power when their own safety was at at hand, at risk. So I hope, yes, to be a model, but to be in partnership with my other Latinas and to continue to break boundaries and take our place at the table. And I think, like many strong women have said, if there is no place for us at the table, we are going to create our own table.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed meeting Alexa and that she inspired you and motivated you to pursue your passions, to make change, whether it's something with your career, your personal life, or in your community. You can do it. You are a leader. We believe in you. Believe in yourself. And if you're in Brooklyn, use your power of the vote to vote for Alexa for District 38. And in the meantime, take time to check out my other videos, hit like and subscribe. Hasta la próxima. This is Patricia Wedding sending you besos de NYC. Mwah.